The big silver ship moved through space like a ghost. No one could see it. No radar could find it. The ship called Axiom was invisible to everyone on the planet below. Inside the ship, 3 aliens looked down at Earth through their special viewing screens. Commander Zethka was tall and thin with gray skin. His people called themselves the Hegemony. They had ruled space for thousands of years. Next to him stood Dr. Vex-9. She was a robot woman from the collective. Her metal body was covered in blinking lights. The third alien was Scholar Quintel from the Unity. He looked like a walking tree with golden leaves instead of hair. They had come to Earth to study humans. This was their job. They traveled from planet to planet and made reports about new species. They found, most of the time, it was boring work. They would watch primitive creatures for a few months. Then they would write down what they saw and leave. Earth looked like every other primitive world they had visited. The humans lived in cities made of metal and stone. They had small flying machines that moved through the sky. Their spaceships were simple and slow, according to all the data. Humans were at least 500 years away from real space travel. But something felt wrong to Commander Zethka. He had done this job for over 100 years. He knew what primitive worlds looked like. Earth was different somehow. Dr. Vex-9 checked her computer screens. The numbers made no sense. The humans were using more energy than they should be able to make. Their cities glowed too bright. Their factories worked too fast. It was like watching children play with toys that were too advanced for them. Scholar Quintel studied the human social patterns. Most primitive species spent their time fighting wars and gathering food. Humans did fight wars, but they also did something strange. They spent huge amounts of time and money on projects that seemed to have no purpose. They built giant machines just to smash tiny particles together. They sent signals into space, hoping someone would answer. They dug holes in the ground looking for old bones. Commander Zethka moved the ship closer to Earth. He wanted to see the human cities better. The viewing screen showed him New York, London, Tokyo, and Moscow. Millions of humans moved through the streets like ants in a colony. But these ants were different. They carried small computers that were more powerful than anything his people had built 1,000 years ago. Dr. Vex-9 found something that made her metal fingers shake. In the desert of Nevada, humans were testing machines that bent space. Around them, in Switzerland, they had built a tunnel that shot particles at almost the speed of light. In Russia, they were trying to make tiny stars in bottles. These were not things that primitive species should be able to do. Scholar Quintel discovered the most disturbing thing of all. He found human books and movies and songs about space travel. But they were not simple dreams about flying to the moon. These humans imagined things that even the advanced hegemony thought were impossible. They wrote stories about traveling through time. They made movies about ships that could fold space. They sang songs about talking to alien minds across the galaxy. Commander Zethka felt worried. In all his years of studying primitive worlds, he had never seen anything like this. Most species developed technology slowly and carefully. They learned to make fire, then metal tools, then simple machines. It took them thousands of years to figure out each step. Humans seemed to skip steps. They went from riding horses to flying through the air in less than 50 years. They learned to split atoms before they learned to cure common diseases. They built computers before they understood how their own brains worked. Nothing about their development made sense. Dr. Vex-9 ran more scans of the human cities. What she found made her want to turn off her emotion circuits. The humans were not just using advanced technology. They were inventing new technology every single day. Patents for new machines filled their government offices. Research papers with new discoveries crowded their libraries. It was like watching a primitive tribe suddenly start building starships. Scholar Quintel studied human history. What he learned made him question everything he thought he knew about evolution. Humans had gone from living in caves to walking on their moon in just 10,000 years. Most species took 1,000,000 years to make that journey. Some never made it at all. The 3 aliens sat in their hidden ship and tried to understand what they were seeing. They had expected to find simple creatures who lived in mud huts and worshiped the sun. Instead, they found a species that seemed to be racing toward technologies that could challenge the greatest powers in the galaxy. Commander ZFK made a decision. They would stay longer than planned. They would study these humans more carefully. Something about this species was different from anything in the galaxy. He needed to understand what that something was. The Axiom moved to the dark side of Earth's moon. There it would be completely hidden while they watched and learned. The three aliens did not know that their careful study was about to change everything. They believed about intelligence, technology, and the nature of reality itself. They thought they were the teachers coming to study primitive students. They had no idea they were about to become the students themselves. The Axiom had been hidden behind Earth's moon for 3 months. Commander ZFK felt safe there. His ship was invisible. The humans could not see them or find them. The three aliens watched Earth every day and took notes about what they saw. Everything was going well until the accident happened. Dr. Vex-9 was fixing the machine that made their ship invisible. It was a routine job that she had done hundreds of times before, but this time something went wrong. A wire broke. A circuit burned out. The invisible shield around their ship turned off. For 4 minutes and 17 seconds, the Axiom became visible to every radar on Earth. Commander ZFK saw the problem immediately. Red lights flashed all over his control room. Warning sounds filled the air. He ran to his command chair and started pressing buttons as fast as he could. But it was too late. On Earth, alarms were ringing in space control centers all around the world. In Houston, Colonel Jake Morrison was drinking coffee when his screens lit up like Christmas trees. In Moscow, Dr. Lisa Wong was reading reports when her computer started beeping. In Geneva, engineer Pete Rodriguez was fixing a satellite when every phone in his building began to ring at once. Within minutes, every major space agency on Earth knew about the alien ship. Within an hour, they were launching rockets toward the moon. Commander ZFK watched in horror as dozens of human ships rose from Earth like angry wasps. From a disturbed nest. The alien commander tried to escape. He turned on his engines and pointed his ship toward deep space, but the humans were already surrounding him. Their ships came from all directions at the same time. They moved in patterns that made no sense to any trained military mind. Most species would attack from one direction, maybe 2 directions if they were very smart. The humans attacked from 12 different directions at once. Some of their ships flew straight at the Axiom. Others curved around in wide circles. A few actually flew backward while shooting forward. It was like trying to fight a school of fish that had gone crazy. Commander ZFK ordered his weapons powered up, but before he could fire, something impossible happened. The human ships began to change. They connected to each other with metal cables. They shared their power systems. In less than 10 minutes, 12 separate ships became one giant machine that surrounded the Axiom like a metal spider web. Then the humans did something that made Scholar Quintel drop his datapad. In shock, they started shooting the Axiom with modified mining lasers. These were tools meant for cutting up asteroids. They should not have been able to damage an advanced alien warship, but the mining lasers cut through the Axiom's shields like they were made of paper. The ship's engines died. The life support system started failing. Commander ZFK realized that somehow these primitive humans had turned simple mining tools into weapons that could stop his advanced starship. The first human came through the airlock 43 minutes after the battle ended. His name was Captain Jake Morrison. He was a big man with short brown hair and calm blue eyes. He carried a weapon that looked like it had been built in someone's garage. Behind him came Dr. Lisa Wong, a small woman with smart eyes and steady hands. The third human was engineer Pete Rodriguez, who kept looking around the alien ship like a child in a toy store. Commander ZFK expected the humans to act like most primitive species did. When they captured advanced technology, they should have been afraid. They should have been confused. They should have spent months or years trying to understand what they had found. Instead, Dr. Wong walked straight to the main computer and started asking questions about quantum field manipulation. Her questions were so advanced that even Dr. Vex-9 had trouble answering them. Engineer Rodriguez looked at the ship's engines for 5 minutes, then started suggesting ways to make them work better. Captain Morrison studied the weapon systems and began explaining tactics that Commander Zefka had never thought of. The most shocking thing was how fast they learned. Dr. Wong understood their computer systems in less than 2 hours. Engineer Rodriguez figured out how their engines worked before lunchtime. Captain Morrison seemed to know more about fighting in space than some of Zefka's own officers. Scholar Quintel tried to explain that learning alien technology should take years of careful study. The humans just laughed. They said they learned best by taking things apart and putting them back together. They called it reverse engineering. To them, it was as natural as breathing. By the end of the first day, the humans were making improvements to alien systems that had worked perfectly for thousands of years. Dr. Wong rewired their computers to run faster. Engineer Rodriguez modified their engines to use less fuel. Captain Morrison reorganized their weapons to be more effective in battle. Dr. Vex-9 ran constant scans on the human brains. What she found made no sense. The humans were not smarter than other species. Their brains were not bigger or more complex. But somehow they could look at any machine and understand how it worked within hours. Commander Zefka realized he was facing something that had never happened before in galactic history. These humans were not just learning about alien technology. They were improving it. They were making it better than the original builders had ever imagined possible. For the first time in his 200 years of life, Commander Zefka felt truly afraid. Not afraid of being captured or killed. Afraid of what these humans might be capable of if they were given enough time. 1 week passed since the humans had taken control of the Axiom. Commander Zefka could not believe what he was seeing. The humans were changing his ship in ways that should have been impossible. Dr. Lisa Wong had moved into the computer room. She spent 18 hours a day taking apart alien machines and putting them back together. But when she put them back together, they worked better than before. The quantum processors that took Zefka's people centuries to develop were now running at twice their original speed. Engineer Pete Rodriguez had claimed the engine room as his workshop. He walked around the massive fusion reactors like he had built them himself. Within 3 days, he had figured out how to make them produce 3 times more power while using half the fuel. When Dr. Vex-9 asked him how this was possible, he just shrugged and said it was obvious once you looked at the problem the right way. The most disturbing changes were happening in the medical bay. Dr. Amy Foster had joined the crew from Earth. She was a young woman with red hair and green eyes who seemed to understand alien biology better than aliens understood themselves. She looked at the medical machines for 2 days, then started rebuilding them to work on both human and alien bodies at the same time. But the real shock came when the humans got access to the navigation computer. Navigator Sam Taylor was not what Commander Zefka expected. The man was 35 years old and had never been to college. He had spent most of his life flying cargo ships between Earth and Mars. He was not a scientist or an engineer. He was just a pilot who was good at finding his way through space. Scholar Quintel tried to explain the navigation system to him. It was very complex. The mathematics involved calculations that took even advanced alien computers several hours to complete. The system used quantum mechanics and probability theory and dimensional mathematics that most species never fully understood. Sam Taylor listened for about an hour. Then he asked if he could try flying the ship. Scholar Quintel said it was impossible. The navigation system required years of training to use safely. One mistake could send the ship into a star or strand it in empty space forever. But Captain Morrison told Scholar Quintel to let Sam try anyway. Sam sat down at the navigation controls and stared at the screens for a long time. The alien symbols and numbers meant nothing to him. He could not read the language or understand the mathematics, but after 3 days of watching and learning, something clicked in his brain. On the 4th day, Sam presented Scholar Quintel with a new way to calculate jumps through space. Instead of using the complex mathematics that aliens had developed over thousands of years, Sam had created a simple system based on what he called gut feeling and common sense. Scholar Quintel ran Sam's calculations through the ship's computer. The results made his golden leaves turn silver with shock. Sam's method was not just faster than the alien system, it was 100 times faster. What took alien computers hours to calculate, Sam could do in his head in just a few minutes. Even worse, Sam's calculations were more accurate. The alien navigation system was wrong about 2% of the time. Sam's system was wrong less than 0.1% of the time. He could predict exactly where the ship would come out of a jump with accuracy that no alien navigator had ever achieved. Dr. Vex-9 tried to understand how this was possible. She scanned Sam's brain while he worked. What she found made her circuits overheat. Sam was not using logic or mathematics the way aliens did. Instead, his brain seemed to understand space itself on some deep level that even her advanced computer mind could not grasp. When Dr. Vex-9 asked Sam to explain how his navigation system worked, he scratched his head and said it was like knowing which way was home. He said space had patterns and rhythms just like ocean currents or wind patterns. Once you learned to feel these patterns, navigation became as natural as walking. Commander Zethka realized that everything he had learned about intelligence and technology was wrong. For thousands of years, alien civilizations had believed that advancement came through careful study and logical thinking. They built on the work of previous generations, adding small improvements over long periods of time. The humans did not work that way at all. They looked at alien technology and saw not what it was, but what it could become. They did not improve existing systems step by step. They threw out the old systems completely and built new ones from scratch. Engineer Rodriguez demonstrated this when he redesigned the ship's power distribution system. Instead of trying to make the alien system work better, he ripped it out and built a completely new one based on principles that no alien had ever considered. His new system was simpler, more efficient, and more powerful than anything in the galactic databases. Dr. Wong did the same thing with the communication systems. She studied how aliens sent messages across space for exactly 1 day. Then she built a new communication device that could send messages faster than light itself. When Scholar Quintel told her this was impossible according to the laws of physics, she smiled and said that maybe the laws of physics needed to be updated. The humans were not just learning alien technology. They were rewriting the rules that governed how technology worked. They were proving that things aliens had believed to be impossible were actually quite simple, once you approached them from the right direction. Commander Zethka sent a secret message to his superiors in the hegemony. He told them that the humans were unlike any species they had ever encountered. He said they did not learn technology the way other species did. Instead, they seemed to invent new technology by instinct. The reply came back 3 days later. His superiors did not believe him. They said he was exaggerating. They said no primitive species could possibly improve upon technology that had taken the hegemony millions of years to develop. Commander Zethka looked around his transformed ship and wondered if his superiors would still think he was exaggerating when the humans showed up at their doorstep. 2 months had passed since the humans took over the Axiom. The ship looked nothing like it had before. Cables and new machines covered every wall. Strange lights blinked in patterns that hurt alien eyes to look at. The air itself felt different, like it was alive and watching. Dr. Lisa Wong had been working on the reality drive for 3 weeks straight. This was the most important machine on the ship. It was what allowed the Axiom to travel faster than light by shifting into other dimensions. The technology was 50,000 years old and had never been improved by any alien race. Wong spent her days taking the reality drive apart piece by piece. She studied each component under microscopes and ran tests that made Scholar Quintel nervous. The reality drive was not something you experimented with. One mistake could tear holes in space itself or trap the ship between dimensions forever. But Wong was not afraid. She treated the reality drive like a puzzle that needed solving. She made notes in a notebook using human mathematics that none of the aliens could understand. She drew diagrams that looked more like art than science. She muttered to herself in English while she worked, saying things like "that's not right," and "there has to be a better way." On a Tuesday morning, Wong made a discovery that changed everything. She found an error in the basic equations that controlled how the reality drive worked. The error was small, just a single number in a calculation that contained millions of numbers. But that one wrong number had been copied into every reality drive ever built by every advanced species in the galaxy. For 50,000 years, every spaceship had been using the wrong mathematics to travel between dimensions. The drives worked anyway, but they worked badly. They used too much power, took too long to charge up, and sometimes put ships in the wrong place entirely. Wong showed her discovery to Scholar Quintel. He looked at her calculations for 6 hours. Then he looked at them again. Then he checked them against the official equations stored in the ship's computer. Finally, he sat down on the floor and stared at the wall. The human was right. 50,000 years of galactic science had been wrong about something as basic as how to move through space. But Wong was not finished. Finding the error was just the beginning. She wanted to fix it. More than that, she wanted to throw out the old system entirely and build something completely new. She worked with engineer Rodriguez and navigator Taylor for the next week. The three humans spent their time drawing pictures on whiteboards and arguing about things that made no sense to the aliens. They talked about convincing reality to change its mind. They discussed making space fold like origami. They planned to build a drive that did not move through dimensions, but instead convinced dimensions to move around the ship. Dr. Vex 9 tried to follow their conversation. Her computer brain could process millions of calculations per second, but she could not understand what the humans were planning. They seemed to be ignoring every law of physics that had ever been discovered. When Wong explained her new drive design to Commander Zethka, he felt like his mind was breaking. She wanted to build a machine that would tell reality that the ship was already where it wanted to go. Instead of traveling through space, the ship would simply appear at its destination, because the universe would believe it belonged there. Commander Zethka told Wong that her idea was impossible. Reality did not work that way. You could not just tell the universe to change and expect it to listen. Wong smiled and said they would find out. It took them 2 weeks to build the new reality drive. They used parts from the old drive mixed with components they made themselves. Some of the new parts were built from materials that did not exist in any alien database. Rodriguez had somehow convinced the ship's fabrication machines to create new types of metal by asking them nicely. The day they tested the new drive, every alien on the ship felt afraid. Wong sat at the controls with Taylor next to her. She entered coordinates for a point in space that was exactly 1 light year away. Under the old system, the jump would take 6 hours to calculate and 30 minutes to complete. Wong pressed the button. For 17 minutes, impossible things happened. The ship arrived at its destination before Wong had finished pressing the button. Time moved backward and forward at the same time. The viewing screens showed 12 different star systems. Simultaneously, Commander Zethka looked out a window and saw himself looking back. Space folded like a paper airplane. New dimensions opened up that had colors no eyes were designed to see. The ship existed in multiple locations at once while somehow remaining in one piece. Reality itself seemed confused about what was happening. Dr. Vex 9's computer brain could not process what it was experiencing. Error messages filled her vision. Her circuits overheated. She shut down completely and had to be restarted like an old machine. Scholar Quintel tried to take measurements of what was happening, but his instruments gave him readings that contradicted each other. According to his sensors, the ship was moving faster than light, slower than light, and not moving at all. It was also somehow moving through time, around time, and before time had been invented. When the 17 minutes ended, the ship was exactly where Wong had wanted it to be. They had traveled 1 light year in less time than it took to think about traveling 1 light year. But they had also traveled to places that did not exist and met versions of themselves from timelines that had never happened. Wong looked at her instruments and smiled. The new drive had worked perfectly. They had not just moved through space faster than ever before. They had proven that space and time and reality itself were much more flexible than anyone had imagined. Commander Zethka realized that the humans had not just improved alien technology. They had discovered that the laws of physics were more like suggestions that could be politely ignored if you asked in the right way. 6 months had passed since the first accident that brought humans and aliens together. The ship that had once been called the Axiom now had a new name. The humans called it the Reality Walker because it could step through dimensions like a person, walking through doorways. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the commander's chair that had once belonged to Zethka. The alien now served as his advisor, helping him understand the history and politics of the galaxy they were about to enter. It was strange how things had changed. The teachers had become students. The students had become something that had no name in any alien language. The ship itself was no longer recognizable. Human modifications had turned it into something that galactic science could not classify or understand. It existed in 7 dimensions at the same time. It could travel through past, present, and future as easily as moving from one room to another. The hull was made of materials that changed their properties based on what the crew needed them to do. Navigator Sam Taylor had changed the most of all. His consciousness had expanded beyond normal human limits when he interfaced directly with the new reality drive. He could now perceive the quantum foundations of existence itself. He saw space and time not as fixed things, but as patterns that could be reshaped with the right touch. When Sam piloted the ship now, he did not just navigate through space. He navigated through the structure of reality itself. He could find shortcuts through dimensions that did not exist until he needed them to exist. He could make the ship arrive at places before it had left. But despite all these changes, he was still essentially human. He still complained about the alien food and made jokes that only other humans understood. Dr. Lisa Wong completed her final analysis of why humans were so different from other species. What she discovered changed everything the galaxy thought. It knew about intelligence and consciousness. Human brains, she found, operated on quantum principles at the cellular level, while other alien species thought in straight lines. From problem to solution, human consciousness existed in a state of controlled quantum superposition. This meant that humans could consider multiple contradictory possibilities at the same time, until reality itself adapted to accommodate their expectations. Other species saw the universe as a fixed set of rules that could not be changed. Humans saw the universe as a conversation partner that could be convinced to try new things. When humans imagined something strongly enough and consistently enough, reality would gradually shift to make that thing possible. This was why humans advanced so quickly. They did not just discover new technology. They convinced the universe that new technology should be possible. They did not just learn alien science. They persuaded reality to work in better ways than it had before. Dr. Vex 9 had been studying human creativity for months. Her robot brain had been upgraded with human-designed circuits that allowed her to process quantum thoughts. What she learned made her question everything she had believed about the nature of existence. Humans, she realized, were not just another intelligent species. They were reality engineers. They were beings whose thoughts could influence the fundamental structure of the universe itself. They did not have technological limitations because they could change what technology was possible. Scholar Quintel wrote his final report about humanity while sitting in what had once been his own research lab. The room was now filled with human inventions that worked on principles no alien could understand. Machines that thought with light, computers that calculated using emotion, tools that existed only when someone needed to use them. His report would be the most important document in galactic history. In it, he explained that humanity should not be classified as a developing species. They should be classified as a force of nature that other species needed to learn to cooperate with rather than try to control or understand. Commander Zethka prepared his own message to send to the Hegemony High Command. He knew they would not believe what he was about to tell them, but he had to try to make them understand. He wrote, "We came to study a primitive species and catalog their technological limitations. Instead, we discovered that humans do not have technological limitations. They have technological suggestions. Reality itself seems to be optional in their presence. I recommend immediate revision of all xenological protocols. I also recommend that humanity be classified not as a developing species, but as a creative force that we should learn from rather than attempt to study." As the Reality Walker prepared to return to galactic space, the crew made their final preparations. The humans had decided to visit the galactic capital and introduce themselves to the great civilizations that ruled space. They wanted to share what they had learned and see what wonders other species had created. Captain Morrison looked out at the stars and smiled. Humanity was about to take its place among the galactic community, but they would not be joining as junior members seeking to learn from their elders. They would be joining as teachers who could show the galaxy new ways. To think about what was possible, Navigator Taylor engaged the reality drive. The ship did not disappear from normal spacetime in the usual way. Instead, it stepped sideways, through dimensions, leaving behind only a brief message written in quantum foam. The message translated roughly to, "Gone exploring. Back eventually. Maybe. Time is more of a guideline now anyway." The aliens who remained on the ship looked at each other and wondered what would happen. When humanity met the rest of the galaxy, they had a feeling that the universe itself was about to become a much more interesting place. Reality had new pilots now, and they were just getting started.